in a little later. So what we do today is, my topic today is on bypassing, and I'll go through the educational piece, and then from there, if you have any questions at all or any comments, feel free throughout the session, because I know I give you a lot of information, and I want you to I give you a lot of information, so I just want you to be able to resonate with one thing, or just look at something that might resonate with you and focus on that rather than trying to take in all the information, because I do record this is recorded, and it will be played again, so you can go back to the replay to get any more information. When I coach you, I will ask you really direct questions if you've opted to be coached. So I'll just go straight to the source, go direct, so we can get to where we need to be, because we don't have a full hour of like therapy or something like that. Glenda, yeah?
What is coaching like?
Yeah, sure. Yep. Great question. So coaching is a little different to therapy. Therapy, I go deep into emotional processing. Coaching is more around the surface. It's probably more also intellect. So it's more intellectual, it's more clarity driven. So I'll ask some questions for you to get more of an understanding and some clarity around your question. And then if you want to go deeper, that's when you'd probably go into therapy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, separate to the trauma and stuff.
Yeah. Great question. I love that you bring that in. Yeah. So rather than going into the trauma in coaching, you would do that in therapy, one-on-one therapy. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question. That's fantastic.
No
I will pop all of you on mute, just so it helps with the sound. So we'll do that. Go. And yeah, please feel free to pop in your comments, chat in the chat box, and we'll go from there. So I've got a bit of information here. I would love to, if you just have reflect on what you believe bypassing is, because as I was writing this masterclass, I was realizing how much I have done it myself. So this is something that we all do, and how easily it can happen as well, and what I've done to learn from those experiences to get closer to my alignment so I don't bypass. And you'll get more of an understanding of that. So as I go through the examples and as I share my story, feel into what resonates for you specifically. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. Okay, so what is bypassing? Bypassing is when we're avoiding our feelings, and we are doing this through intellectualizing, dissociating. Sometimes we bulldoze, minimizing and suppressing. Anytime we're in the mind justifying an experience, defending our stance, thinking logically and analytically about something, we are bypassing our feelings. So that's what bypassing is. And when we are doing that, we tend to guess what we want. And the reality of it is, and the really interesting thing is, when we're making decisions in our lives, we're actually making them to feel a certain way. Our mind comes in and intellectualizes it and creates the how and what I need to do, and what strategic decisions I need to make. And that is important. But what's also important is to know your internal emotional state and intrinsic, which we'll go through, motivators around why you want a certain goal, intention, or thing. So if you just go to the bottom, when we make decisions that create further stress and unwanted outcomes. So thinking about for yourselves, like, when have you made a decision that's maybe like taking a risk? Maybe there's like a relationship that you went into where it just caused more stress and anxiety, because what you realize is it wasn't what you thought it would be. Like it wasn't what you thought it would create. So bypassing, when we bypass, we're blind to our reality too. And we all have this, because as we're peeling back the layers of our belief system, what is happening when we don't see a belief is it's clouding our judgment and distorting our ability to see what is in front of us, to see the reality of what's in front of us. So we will miss red flags, we will miss seeing that the role that we're playing, and I'll go more into this dynamic too, because we have a core belief that we're taking action from that we're not aware of. And it's not until we find ourselves reflecting on that situation that we kind of realize, oh, what role did I play in that situation? Or what belief was behind me making that decision and not seeing the reality of what was in front of me. Okay. So some examples of bypassing, I'm going to share my stories as well, but these are like just examples of what bypassing is specifically. So toxic positivity, generally that's a bypass, because if I can only think about the positive things, then I will avoid and dismiss negativity. And that's because I feel a discomfort in it. So there's this always be positive, or look at the positives, be grateful, that sort of thing. Taking big financial risks and then being in a fight flight response to try to make it work. Distractions by working hard, exercising, or sports. So that tends to be we're chasing a feeling. And so it's bypassing the current feeling that we might be getting. So anytime we're working hard, exercising, or sport, it's not that we do it all the time, but it's a distraction for how we feel in our body. Because if you notice that when we're doing those things, we're kind of in this state of tension, and we're like distracting ourselves from what's really happening inside. Striving for perfection, so we make sure that other people don't judge us, or we try to control how they think about us. So again, try to bypass the discomfort of someone maybe judging us, or not liking what we do, or not valuing us, and rejecting us. Not valuing emotions or feelings, so valuing intellect instead. So this is your genius that has no friends, because they are so focused on their work and so focused on intellect, but they're not really focused on connection, or looking at their like inner world. It's also like on a lower level, it's where we can be really intelligent, and that is valuable to society. Whereas feeling my feelings, if you think about it in our society, it's not as valued. So it's that sort of thing as well. Spiritual bypassing, be grateful, let go and forgive before you're ready. This can be really strong in the spiritual world, and avoiding anger. I know someone that was running a men's retreat, and he said, we don't look at anger. And that just told me that's a bypass, because anger has signals. There's a reason why we have anger. There's a reason why we have sadness and grief. So we've got to really look at all of our emotions, feel all of our emotions. So we're not bypassing and trying to skip a step. It's almost like a rite of passage to be feeling and then making decisions from that place. Love and light to everyone. I've seen this where people treat others poorly and then are expected to say love and light, so to minimize the severity of what they've done. So like high tolerance of bad behavior in the spiritual world can happen, because it's very much being responsible for yourself. This can be an avoidant dynamic and a bypass in itself, because it's like if I say you need to be responsible for your own feelings, what I'm ultimately saying is I'm not willing to sit in the tension of conflict when you are upset, or I'm not willing to sit in the tension of your upset. So it's not about being saying it's your fault. It's more about how can we have an interdependent relationship? How can we meet both of our needs and care and consider both? So there's that aspect too. The other part is got here, thinking someone else has healed us through energy work. And this is really difficult, because energy work, sound healing, all these things, breath work, they're incredible modalities, and we're so lucky to have them, and Reiki and kinesiology as well in there. And in order for us to heal on a holistic level, we have those modalities, as well as we also need relational and our environment that we put ourselves in. So we heal through each other, and this is really big work as well. So We also, examples of bypassing is we tend to, if we're really drawn to these modalities, we could have a fear of expressing our emotions to another person because we could have been shamed when we were younger, punished for having emotions and being vulnerable. So we can have a fear with going to therapy or processing emotions with another person because we may feel out of control or there may be an unknown. And that was really scary when we were younger. So we can have some edges there around really feeling into our process and healing. Using money to create comfort. The examples of this is like winning the lottery or getting inheritance. And, you know, you may have heard of people who win the lottery and they've spent all their money because they haven't sort of done the inner work. They've looked at the external world and just sort of used up all the money in that way. So the way that we do this is if I can buy whatever I want, then I don't really need to own my own process. Like it kind of creates a comfort, even though it can feel a bit empty still. It can feel like I don't have many friends that I can really depend on. I could still buy my way through stuff. So it's really being careful with that side of things. If we've got money to know how we're spending it and respecting that side of things. Making decisions from a place of fantasy, denial, or persona. We all have done this at some degree. This stops us seeing the reality, which is what I spoke about at the start of this session. And it also stops us to see like the habits and personality traits that we need to achieve our goal. So in alignment, if I have a fantasy that I'm a really good person, I'm not a bad person, I'm a really good person, then what I'm going to miss are the times when I'm not a good person, are times when I can be hurting people, because I'm so hyper focused on identifying with this fantasy of being a good person. So it's important that we could see all parts of us. So we know that I can be a bad person. I can be hurtful. I can be also a really good person. So I can be both. And that's okay too. Shame keeps us from feeling those things. Not being aware of what motivates us. So for me, an example of this is I went from one job to the next. I used to work in enviroscience. And what I did was I was really miserable in my job and I would blame the organization. I was constantly like, that's because they do, like I just had all these reasons why the organization wasn't great. And I didn't go in to be like, well, what truly motivates me on an intrinsic, internal level? What are my values? What are my needs? What motivates me? And once I started to do that, I realized that the organization wasn't the problem. It was actually me not knowing what I truly wanted. I wasn't clear on it. So I kept bypassing by going from one job to the next because I didn't sit back and feel into my process. Back then I didn't know about therapy, I didn't know about coaching or counselling, I didn't know any of those modalities even existed, which is really interesting to think. And so I went and saw a psychologist who kind of explored this a little bit with me. What is really happening when we're making decisions? Okay, so I just explained it a little bit. When I made that decision to go from one job to the next, I was only looking at the extrinsic. So I was looking at the job, what it paid. I was looking at whether I could do the work physically and probably not so much emotionally because I always thought I could do the work, but whether I was capable of doing the practical side of things. So I was looking at all the externals. So when we're making decisions, we're actually making it from the intrinsic and we don't realize it. That's the subconscious coming in. So it's like we're making it from past experiences. We're making it from what we want to feel. We're also, if we've had trauma, we're making decisions from that place as well. So there's all these layers of what actually we're making decisions from. And once we get an understanding of that, we can start to say, okay, I will consciously, with awareness, make these decisions and goals so then I can see more of my reality. So we're wanting to feel an outcome that gives us something. And this sometimes, so if you think about your goal, what's the feeling that you want? Because sometimes this will look differently to what your mind tells you want. It might not be hugely different. I'll give you an example. I've just moved into the place that I'm in now. And before I moved here, I had this goal of wanting to live by the beach. So it's like, I want to live closer to the beach. And then what I did is I named all the emotions and feelings and sensations I wanted to feel in this home and what I needed for my business to grow. So that's what I did. I did a plan around all those things. And whereas my mind told me I want a house by the beach, that's what's going to give me the feelings. What happened was I ended up with a house more inland, but it gave me all the feelings. So my mind was like, this is the house that you're going to get by the beach. But when I actually came into this home that's more inland, it's about 20 minutes, 25 minutes from the beach. When I came here, I was like, oh, it's got the natural light. It makes me feel light, warm, flow, inspired. It has the things that I want. Like, it had everything. And so that was such a good example of my mind thinking that it was going to look like something else. But then I really was able to sit in the feeling of it. And now I'm in the house. I love it. So it was a really good choice. So big goal. So what we can see, I absolutely love it when my clients have big goals, have these big goals, because I even have goosebumps saying it. It's so important for us to know that what we're capable of, and we are capable of so much. The way that I ground it with my clients is to ground it. We have to ground it in the reality that we're in now, and to create the feeling state, bring it into your everyday life. How can I bring this feeling state into my everyday life? Who do I need to be to create these goals? So as I said before, part of us is making decisions to heal from our trauma. So we really need to be clear on when we're doing that, because I've got underneath it, examples of this is like cult leaders, narcissists, sociopaths, like lacking empathy, but in a fantasy of something else. So this is actually a thing. Like, we know that there've been cult leaders that have existed. They're the extreme end of a fantasy and denial and bypassing. They're the extreme end of it. Where it comes in for us, we may fall victim to that. People can fall victim to that and be in survival mode. We can fall into other people's fantasy as well, until we see when we're making decisions, how is our wounding or our trauma influencing that decision? Okay, what can you do to minimize bypassing? So we all want to know, right? I don't want to bypass. I don't want unwanted outcomes. So just being able to identify feelings and emotions, sensations for the goal, which is what I said before. So knowing what your goal is, what are the feelings, emotions, and sensations when you think about achieving that goal, and really dreaming into it, identifying the goal, like what would it give you financially, emotionally, and spiritually? What would this give me? And then what part of you that is doing this is your wounding? So what I said before, identifying your needs and values. So this is all intrinsic work. This is all around, let's go. So the goal tends to be the extrinsic. It's also like, the house we want, what we want to create in our businesses. These are all extrinsic goals. And the way that we achieve it is to come into both intrinsic and extrinsic. So emotional needs, values, looking at our belief systems, and being careful who we get feedback from. Are they in fantasy, or are they rooted in reality? Are they maybe in their fear? You'll notice when you have a goal, if people are in their fear, they're like, are you sure you can do that? They'll try to project their own fear onto you. So being aware of where you get your feedback from. Identifying your beliefs, identifying the type of person that you need to be. So this is something that was really big for me with my goals, to identify who do I need to be a successful therapist. And the things that come up for me was like grounded, consistent, constantly looking at myself and my own activations when I'm working with people, so I can see the reality If I have activations and I'm in survival, I'm missing information. So really working on myself to show up for my clients, having a healthy environment to be in, feeding and nourishing myself in a healthy way. I go to the gym, so really moving my body as much as I can in a healthy way, having supportive people around me. So, like, who do I need to be? Who's the best version of me to show up in my organization and to grow from there? And so, what I did, so this masterclass actually is part of who I need to be and want to be, because I want to show up consistently for the people who I work with, and also for people like yourself who can show up and just get a little, learn a little nugget of something and take that home with you. Why understanding our subconscious is so powerful. Uh, when we're bypassing, we don't know that it's happening until later on and we reflect on it. This is because it's in the subconscious. That's what I was saying, like we can't sometimes see it. So our protector and our belief systems, this is part of what stops our growth, and we call it sabotages us, but in a way we're always trying to protect ourselves from something. Our body is never against us, but it's trying to protect us. So getting a really clear understanding around our protector and our belief system and how that might be stopping our growth. As I said, our beliefs distort our reality. And this is on a subconscious level. We don't mean to do this. I didn't mean to go from one job to the next. I also did another thing I wanted to share with you. When I first started my business before therapy, it was probably about 10 years ago now. I bought a marketing course from Fantasy. So this person showed that they had all this money and they'd create it through this certain marketing course, and they had like fancy things. And I was like, well, like, I don't want all those fancy things, but I can see that they've made really good money. They must know what they're talking about. It was all a fantasy. It was all a facade. It was all marketing, right? They had created this through marketing. But when I bought from them, I was buying from a place of up here. So I was like, well, if I buy from them, I'm going to make money too. And this is going to fix all my money problems. It's actually going to fix all my problems, really. I thought that's what I thought at the time. And the reality of it was very different. It was how she worked. So, firstly, it was out of alignment with how I wanted to work. It was her own process, and it wasn't quite what I thought it was. So, she didn't have that many clients. She actually wasn't making that much money and was in fight flight the whole time and burnt out. So, all the things that I thought from an intellectual level just weren't the reality. What did I learn from that? I learned that I was trying to get a quick fix. I learned that I thought she had all the answers of my alignment, and that I need to come back to myself in order to make the aligned decisions. And that was a really big learning for me, and very expensive too. This is so another way that the protector can come in. So I've got two examples here. One way can be, I'm special, powerful. We could have like, and we don't realize we have this. It's like we think we have these special powers that no one else has. And then we can have someone else reinforce these fantasies. We've all got intuition and we've all got incredible powers in that sense. But being careful of this, I'm better than, I'm more special. These are the sort of dynamics that we need to be careful of. And then there's the other dynamic, because generally people this can be in the spiritual world, just the top one I'll go back to. If people are saying like, I'm enlightened and I'll show you the way, that sort of dynamic is like, I have got there, I'm kind of got this God guru sort of dynamic. That's when you know there's a bit of bypassing happening. So the other example is being highly identified with trauma and weakness or victim. And this is not saying that people have not suffered from experiences and that it weren't a victim. Yes, absolutely, that happens. And that happens when we also have trauma. What this means is if I can't see beyond the story, I will not get to the reality of my experience because the story is distorted. But what isn't distorted, and when I say distorted, it's generally hard to process that emotionally, the story. Underneath is the feeling we have when we express the story. When we can go into the feeling space, the protector tends to come in and say, don't do that. It's dangerous. It's dangerous to feel your feelings and process that. Do not go there. She doesn't know what she's doing. It will come in and say all sorts of things. But if we can go underneath the story and beyond what we had, the suffering, we can then heal as well as see more clearly and be more intuitive as well. How fear plays a role. So as I said, in the past one, it can, if we fear being out of control, if we fear feeling shame, and we will notice this with different ways. So let's read this. If we have been shamed to feel and express our emotions, we will want to avoid this. This is because it's scary to feel our emotions in front of people. I know that people have been gaslit when they were young, and what that means is you had to suppress your emotional expression. When you have to suppress to that degree, it can be really scary to feel your feelings. So this is why it's not as easy as, oh, just feel your feelings, just feel it, because we've got protectors and blockages around doing this because we can feel out of control. And it can be really hard to surrender to the unknown. And that tends to be because the unknown and our self-expression was met with punishment. It was met with being shamed. It was met with just all sorts of things that we probably, weren't good. So as adults, we've got to relearn the safety of feeling. And that sounds like, I thought I was just feeling my feelings. And that you probably would be feeling many of your feelings. There'll be certain feelings that might be scary. Some people can be scared to express their feelings because of society marginalizing our feelings. So what I mean by that is we have the DSM in psychology that diagnoses people with disorders. So it makes sense that we bypass sometimes. And that's because if I am fully myself and expressing my emotions, I may be told that I've got some sort of disorder. And that can be really, really difficult because then people want to medicate or people may want to push you away. And this causes more suppression and in a conflict. So what happens is we suppress the part of us that's vulnerable and needs to feel even more. We can fear being labelled bad. So that's what I brought that up before. And our defender or victim may come in this. So we are really avoiding shame. We're bypassing the shame when we fear this. If we fear, as I said, I'm a bad person, and we defend or be the victim in a situation where we've done something wrong because we can't see clearly, we're going to continue to hurt people and we'll continue to push people away. So it's really important to see this from an observer and not label ourselves as a bad person, but guilt and shame in a healthy way are there for a reason, and it's so we can live in harmony with each other. It's not so we can shame each other or, use it as punishment. What to do once you realize you're bypassing? What was the co-creation? So a few questions you can ask yourself. What was the co-creation? What role did I play? And what role did they play? Asking this from an observer point of view. What happened? What did I feel when I was in that role? What sort of emotions, fear came up when I was in that role? So when I was in that experience. What belief was making, what belief was I making choices from that I now that I know what I know? It's always in hindsight, right? We don't know until we become aware of it. As I said before, the reason it can be hard is because our protector comes in. So getting a therapist to support you through this can be really helpful. to seeing your truth as well. We need to move beyond the story, as I said before, to make different choices in our life and to get different outcomes. And this is where the support of someone else to navigate that with can be really helpful. The hardest thing you can do in your life is move through this. When you can get uncomfortable and move through the fear, it can be the most hardest thing you do. And it can be the most rewarding thing that you can do in your life, as long as you're willing to get uncomfortable. Unfortunately, it's not comfortable. So that is it. I would love to hear any questions, any insights. If you would like to be coached, we can get straight into it. Or if there's questions first, I'm happy to do that. Did you put your hand up, Glenda? Oh, no. You're like, no, I just stretched. Who would like to be coached? Yeah, Kate? All right, let's do it.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
Hi. I missed a little bit of the beginning.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's just so much information, I guess. But I'm really excited to explore. But one bit that stuck with me was how just being so afraid to feel my feelings, and I didn't realize this. Like, I've been feeling my feelings this whole time. I feel lots of feelings, highs and lows. But realizing that I'm terrified of feeling my feelings.
Yeah, okay. If
Really,
you have
like big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you have a question towards that insight that you've got, what would it be?
I don't know. I guess you have to. It's more about just believing that you're going to be okay, because I think they're overwhelming, the feelings. So I'm not quite sure how to put that into a question. Yeah. What do you do when your feelings are totally overwhelming?
Yeah, great question. Okay. So when our feelings are overwhelmed, I'm just writing your question down.
Yeah.
When and I'll ask you a few more questions, direct ones, we'll come back to you.
Yeah, good.
When our feelings are overwhelming, what's happening in our nervous system is our body saying, hey, this is too much. And we either shut down, freeze, flight. So flight comes in first, shut down, freeze, or dissociate. So what we want to do is, rather than overwhelm the nervous system, we go slow. So this is why, knowing what you know, and I know we work together, which is fantastic, I will work slowly with you and your protector to make, because your protector has beautiful insights. It's just that it needs to be asked a few questions. We need to create a dialogue with it. It has the information we need to keep you safe so you don't go into overwhelm.
I just remembered the experiencing. I didn't realize until recently about disassociation as well. Like, I sometimes knew, but we had to get my partner's dog put down, and I was there with the dog, and I was like, and some part of my brain's like, I'm just totally fine. I'm here for my partner. That's what it does when there's an extreme stress. It's like, yeah, it's all cool. Yep. And then the next day, I turned a tap on. Like, we got a tank water, and there's barely any left, and we're waiting on. Anyway, I left the tap on for 2 hours, and I was like feeling a bath, and I was like, whoa, I'm not okay. I don't forget things like that. Yeah. Anyway, so.
Yeah, they're really good examples, and I'm so sorry to hear about the dog too.
Yeah.
Those are examples. Yeah.
So it's really interesting. I convinced myself I'm totally fine, though. That's a weird thing. It's like, yep, it's all cool. Yep.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew that I should be upset though. So I was like, give yourself some time around this. But I can see how in the past I was just like, all the time, I'm fine. Yeah. But then doing strange things in the background. So that's,
And because you've been doing the inner work, your awareness has grown. So
yeah.
you knew something wasn't quite right. You're like, actually, I don't think I'm okay. And that's because
Mm,
your observer is strong now, where you're like observing your experience. And rather than being fully identified with it, you've created
mm,
space between your
mm,
experience and your observer, where you're like, oh,
mm.
wait a minute, I'm not okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But how does this all come around to goals? Getting and bypassing.
It's a good question.
I think
How
I'm doing, yeah. That's I jump like, yeah, I don't know, is that like distracting as well? Like, you know, things are uncomfortable, so you sort of focus on something else or get into a different hobby or like, or is it more
so
about feelings?
for you, what I know, is that okay if I bring in an example?
Yeah, sure.
So for you, what I know, your flight response comes in. So
Mm-hmm.
the bypass is getting lured in by the flight response instead of being present with the what's happening in the body.
Mm. Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
Just like, and that do thing, and which I was like, I am noticing when I'm do like I feel like I have to do, and I feel like I'm going backwards. I'm like, Thelma said, slow it down. I'm like, I'll do something, and then oh yeah, I was like trying to make these preserves, and then I burnt the whole thing. Like when I just needed to not do anything.
Yeah, yeah, and slowing down for you was really unsafe when you were little,
It's very uncomfortable.
and that's why it's uncomfortable. Yes.
Not doing anything feels really uncomfortable too. I feel like I'm getting even more behind if I allow myself to have this space. So that's distressing
and that
too.
and that will be the belief system that we uncover, because the belief, if
Okay.
I'm not doing anything, then I'm not getting anything done. And society kind of amps up that belief too, because we're all about productivity, right?
Yes.
Whereas now it's like, what's the value in slowing down?
Well, grounding, coming up with better ideas usually, not wasting time. Like I am really aware of it though, and now I'm like just slow. Like I was just flapping around. I'll just say flapping, just doing everything like this, and then I'm like, is there an easier way to do that? If I thought about it for a minute, like whatever it
Yeah.
is, is there a better way to do that? Or yeah,
So what I would suggest is, when you slow down, what am I feeling? Start to
mm,
ask that question. You might not know at first, and that's okay. What am I feeling? You could just feel the sensations. My heart rate's going fast. My stomach's a
well, I
little.
felt yeah.
Uh,
I
my
knew
head,
I was.
my head feels tense. Just noticing the
Oh,
sensations,
okay.
and then
Or my
from there,
stomach. Yeah.
yeah, and then from there, what I would say is, what is the emotion that's attached to this, and just see if it comes up. It might be I don't know, and if it's I don't know, that's a good indicator that you might be in a little bit of shutdown. It could be, oh, the emotion is, oh, I'm feeling a bit unease and I'm scared, or I'm feeling, and then you might even go further, I'm
I
feeling a
feel
bit.
like you've told me this so many times, but I need to write it down and have it like on a on a on a board. It's because it's at the times when you a lot of the time I can kind of sometimes have these insights, but other times it's like yesterday, I had this weird back thing, and pretty sure it was like a somatic, like it happened to me once before, but it felt like I had a like kidney. I don't know. It was just really weird, and I had this pain, but it wasn't my back. Like I was like sure it was something to do with emotional, like
Yeah, and you're probably right.
because I had it when I went to my family once, and I like had all these tests. There was absolutely nothing wrong with me, but I had these like excruciating back pain, like kidneys or like I don't know, yeah. And then I was like, there was actually nothing
Yeah,
wrong
and
with me.
coming back to, you tell me this all the time. And what I want you to be aware of is, it's a new way of being. This
It
is
is.
complete-
It's so, yeah, it is. Yeah, I
so
was
what-
just doing
yeah. Thank you for
action, like, yes.
bringing that in. I'm just aware that we're just with time. So thank you.
Yeah, cool.
I
No worries.
appreciate you putting your hand up for coaching. I hope everyone got something out of that as well. But yeah, great work. We'll also cover it in one-on-one, Kate. Amazing. Okay, anyone else that would like to be coached? Glenda, let's do this, Kate. I might pop you on mute. I think if I ask you to unmute, are you able to unmute, Glenda?
Yes, done.
Fantastic. Okay, great. What would your question be?
Fear. Fear has overcome me quite a lot through my life. I guess it's been more being unworthy, being afraid to speak up, use my power, all of that type of thing. And I've actually done I'm seeing another person. I see Raya actually, and I've got through a lot of fear by being present with it and stuff like that. But, of course, there's more trauma there. But I had this, it sort of backs me away sometimes. And it's like, no, you can't do that. No, you won't be able. I'm moving in with my son and his partner for a little while. And we've just been approved of a house, but it's got a really, really steep driveway. And I'm thinking, oh, right, I've got to walk up that driveway. I've got to take bins or up and down that driveway, or I've got to drive up the driveway and reverse back. Oh, that's really scary. And that fear was just overtaking me. It's like, no. And then I started saying all the wrong things, like not saying all the wrong things, like saying, oh, the house is not what we want and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's...
Okay, thank you for the background of that. I'm also wondering, what would your question be?
How to overcome that.
How to overcome the fear?
How to sort of work through more and be more, I don't know, I guess, would it be present or something?
Yeah, I was wondering, what would you like the outcome to be?
Let it go. I am capable, but it's just my inner self believing that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So what's the scariest part of being in this? So you moved into a new house? Is that?
No, we will be moving, yes.
You will be moving. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to take you directly just into just a little bit of work. When you feel the fear, what's the fear? What do you notice in your body?
I get that feeling of butterflies and fear in my tummy.
Yeah, butterflies in your tummy, and that. What's happening in your chest?
No, not a great deal actually. It comes into my tummy straight away, and then I may have gut issues, or then I scare myself or something, and then I may need to go to the loo.
Yeah.
And that's really like, oh my goodness, Glenda,
Yeah, that's the fear response coming in, really. Yeah, getting rid of everything, getting ready to run away, getting ready to shut down the system.
Yeah.
That's the fear response coming in. Okay. What I would say is, in this situation, there would be some sort of activation there for you to explore. So there's an activation there to explore, where there's an association with the walking up, like maybe with strength, like doing, is it strength stuff, or walking the bins up the hill? Like, is it based on physical strength?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly a bit, yes. Yeah, I'm also aware underneath all that I'm capable.
Yeah, right. So the mind's like, but I'm capable, but the body's like, no, you're not. No, no. So that's where we want to bring harmony to both.
Yeah.
And if you were, I won't go into it here because what I'm sensing is that there's an activation and probably an association with something that happened to you in the past that has come into this situation. So in order to get real about what it is, we'd have to go into that
Yeah.
to then get the information. And once you get the information, you've got more clarity on your situation at home and where you're moving into, and also
Yeah.
more clarity around what you need to feel safe.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I will look at making an appointment as well. Yes.
Amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll go
Okay.
into.
Thank you.
Thanks, Glenda. Does anyone else, and thank you for being vulnerable and coming on and being coached.
No worries.
Sophia, come on down.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
The thing that came up for me was I feel like I tend to bypass my emotions a lot. So I'll know that there'll be emotions that are happening in the background, but I'll just like push through until something triggers me, and then I have this huge emotional outburst. So I feel like I'm a lot of the time bypassing the emotion and not knowing how to communicate that or like process it on my own. And it just builds up and up and up, and then it just, yeah,
Flow.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. What would your question be?
How, almost kind of like, how can I process the emotions that are coming up when they're coming up at the time?
Do you know, so you said you have this understanding that it is coming up. Like, do you know that it's coming up, or do you know?
Yeah, I feel it, and then it's like for me,
Yep.
I will often just put it aside and then continue with what I'm doing.
Okay.
But me putting it aside is building, like,
Yes.
yeah.
So you feel it, and then I'm just going to slow that part down. I'm feeling it, and then I go, what do I say to myself? What would you say to yourself to put it aside?
Oh, it's nothing.
Yeah. That's good to know, right? So it's nothing. So I minimize it.
Mm.
Yeah. So that's the next,
Mm-hmm.
which I was taught to do. That was not something you consciously do and want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so then it's put aside. So that's a good step to know. So what could I do at that point rather than minimize it? That's the signal, right? The signal is,
Yeah.
what did you say again? Sorry. It's not that bad.
No. Oh, yeah, it's not that bad. Yeah, or just, yeah, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't
Or,
matter. So
yeah.
your signal, whenever you say it's not that bad and it doesn't matter, that's your signal.
Mm-hmm.
Come back to it. Wait a minute.
Okay.
That's my protector coming in. It's trying to get me not to feel. Okay.
Yeah.
Back to that. And then you can come back. So just even give that little process a go and see what happens.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Thelma.
You're so welcome. Hey, anyone else would like to go? We all coached out. Any questions on the content? No. Looks like we've all coached out. Any other further questions? Oh, it's been such a pleasure having you all on here. I feel like it's so rich when I have good numbers on here. So thank you. Thank you for, putting some time aside and trusting that you'll get something out of coming to the masterclass. It was really great having you all. And I will speak to you all next week if you come along to the next masterclass. And if you would like to work with me, I have all my details on my website and you can contact me through there, or you would have got an email from me as well. So you can also email me too. Okay. Enjoy the rest of this Monday. It's nice and sunny here. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll speak to you all later. Bye.